All right, so welcome everybody to Differentiate Products and Services to Sell More. I'm Chris DeCenzo from Growth Strategy Partners. We're doing this in association with the NASGW, and we've actually got Ken Gleason on the line here. Kenyon, you there?
I am, Chris. Thank you very much. Folks, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be calling in from today. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know it's a super busy summer with all that's going on in the political arena, and certainly have seen the numbers out there. So I know you folks have been busy, and taking time out of your day to come on to a leadership training opportunity to hear more about sales and marketing is a commitment. So we appreciate you doing that. I want to give special thanks to Lori and Tim for joining us today. They too are super busy right now, and it's just been this series of webinars that we've done has just been phenomenal, and really appreciate all of the guests we've had. But in the case of Lori and Tim, they too, being in the arena, are super busy right now, and so just very grateful that you two could be on in particular, and of course George and Chris, thanks for taking part. I hope you all enjoy the session today. I know they've got a lot of great information for you, and you're definitely going to learn a lot. You've got two top experts on the line today, so please be sure you come up with some great questions for them. Just one other really kind of quick note for those of you who haven't registered for the expo this fall. We've got a great event planned. We've sold out the floor space for the show, and I think we got maybe one or two booths, I guess, left, but we're closing in on being sold out. The awards dinner and banquet, as we always do every year, is going to be a great event again on Tuesday night, and really looking forward to everybody joining us in Kansas City the last week of October this year. So if you haven't gotten registered, do start thinking about that. If you haven't booked hotel rooms, that might get to be a little challenge, so you want to get on that here pretty quick as well. So having said that, look forward to seeing you all in the fall for our event, and again, enjoy today's call, and let us know if there's anything out there that you'd love for us to do a webinar on. We'd be glad to try to arrange things. Be sure to tell Chris in your follow-up survey questions, what you think about today's webinar, and so we can cater these and make sure that we do the appropriate kinds of things moving forward. So really appreciate it. Again, thanks so much for being on, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Kenyon, very much. So today we're going to talk about differentiating your products. The topic came up, George and I, going to the NASGW Expo, the SHOT Show, and just in discussions in general with organizations, we see, I guess we'd say we're somewhat troubled by the lack of differentiation that's out there. Many companies saying a lot of the same things about why customers should buy their products or their services. We thought this would be helpful in addition to getting a lot of shooting sports companies coming to us recently and asking for help in this area. So that's where this topic came from. Just to let you know who we have listening in today. We've got basically a bunch of presidents, some vice presidents. We have a lot of business development and sales and marketing expertise here. About a third of the attendees are in the distribution side, and the rest of them are on the product side. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. Today's goal is to provide you with some insights on how can you improve your differentiation of whether you're a product company or a service company, and ideally motivate you to take action, if not give you some insights on how to do that. We're going to talk about why differentiation matters, what the options are you have to look at, how do you select the one that's best for your business, and then how to put it in place. A little background on myself. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, started with Ruger back in '86, one of the best jobs I've had. Spent a lot of years in industry, and then jumped around a bunch of times and realized it was a career that's called consulting, and you can see where I've done some work on the consulting side. But the focus has always been on privately held businesses. In 2003, I started Growth Strategy Partners, and love focusing on the shooting sports industry. You can see I'm a competitive shooter, also a hunter. I think the key thing today to learn is that the female to male ratio has improved in my household. It's gone from 7 to 2 to now 6 to 2 because one of my daughters is now graduated from college and she's working in the real world. That's it about me. George?
I formed International Firearms Consultants in 2011 after retiring from Sig Sauer and 21 years with that organization, and thought I was going to kick back and do nothing, but it took a grand total of 2 weeks before people found out that I was quote-unquote a free agent and started calling on me for assistance. Chris was one of those people, and we found out that we worked well together, and so we kind of consolidated our efforts. Chris does other things other than shooting sports and that kind of stuff. He's heavy into the food industry. I don't do anything but shooting. My family is shooting oriented. We're all either law enforcement, military, we're hunters, we're competitive shooters. We do everything that you can do with a firearm legally from A to Z. So we use all that experience and expertise in passing it forward, if you will, and helping people and companies do a little bit better job in what they do. So that's pretty much.
Thanks, George. And together, what we do is, help many companies in the shooting sports industry improve their revenue growth, their profit growth, and the talent in their business. We're kind of unique in that we've done some research on what drives long-term profitable growth. We call it these 7 keys to growth. And you can see some of the clients that we've done work as a select group in the last few years. We're passionate about the sport, and we like it. Let's get to our guest speakers today. Real excited to have both Tim and Lori here today. Tim, we'll start with you. How about a little background and insights for our audience?
Sure, thanks. I've been hunting and shooting since I was a young child. Had the opportunity in Wyoming to start guiding hunters, and I got a kind of a unique perspective as a guide on how people are using outdoor equipment, hunting, shooting, etc. After doing that for a number of years, I did join Leupold, and I went from being on the guide end of the product usage to the phone end, where people are calling in from the field, and quite honestly, it became very clear very quickly that you need to pay specific attention to what those consumers are asking for. Having the education on our side is one thing, but being able to really listen to what they want, not what we want to produce, has been what's really helped me going forward. So worked my way up through marketing, and now I'm leading the product development team here at Leupold. It's been great, and I look forward to a lot more years doing exactly what we're doing now.
I like, Tim, that Tim's actually been with the consumer, right? As a guide, you've been there and not just went through, the product development functional skills, but you were there with the customer, which is really where you're going to get some great insights, which I know you'll share with us later today. Lori, I'm excited to have Lori here, and I do got to let everyone know Lori's on vacation, and she's taken some time off from her vacation to join us. So, Lori, thank you for joining us. You want to give us a little background? I think people obviously know Lipsey's, but how about you?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, good morning from Colorado. Still morning out here, but thank you. So, I've been in the sporting goods business for over 25 years officially, but I grew up in it. My father and my grandfather had a retail store that began in 1943. So I grew up in the retail sporting goods business, and I worked my way from wrapping gifts at holiday time to working behind the knife counter in high school. But I was a duck hunter growing up with my dad. We would go down to our duck camp, and really it was only recently that I was able to experience hunting on a little bit more of a higher level than what I had been used to in the past doing duck hunting. I was able to go alligator hunting for the first time this year, which I love, as well as red stag hunting in Argentina. So I've been more of a shooter than a hunter, but recently I've gotten a little bit more into hunting, and I've enjoyed it. And like I said, I joined our company officially about 25 years ago, and have really been engaged in not only our NASGW board, but I've had a great opportunity to join the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and have been also active in different committees with NRA, and I've enjoyed them all very much.
Thanks, Lori. And I thought, the goal today, at least for us, was to get someone both from the wholesaler distribution side, which is Lori can speak to, and then Tim kind of from the product side. So we got a little of both. So thank you both for joining us today. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about differentiation. A little definition here of the process of distinguishing yourself, right, to make it more attractive per particular market segment. And this is what we're going to focus on today. I kind of like the picture. Not only is it I guess shooting and hunting oriented, you got a guy in the with a vacuum in the back. Different way to get your ducks. I don't know, Lori. I'm assuming you didn't use the vacuum when you were doing the duck hunting early on. I'm sure it was probably one of the shotguns, right?
Although I probably could have used the help.
So the question, to everyone listening today is how well do you do this? But not only how well do you differentiate your product, but how well do you execute, the communication of that differentiation? We hear a lot about, what we have and what we do, but people don't know it. In fact, we hear quite often, geez, if people knew about us, we'd sell a lot more. And that's a part of it, but it's back to execution. So again, we'll talk a little about not only what is differentiation, but how do you implement it? How do you make it successful? So let's talk about first, why is it important? Okay, why is differentiation important? You got a whole bunch of different impacts on your business. It really starts to us at the macro strategy perspective. What is the purpose of the company? What are you offering? Why would somebody buy from you versus somebody else? And let's not talk. We can talk a little about the current situation and the environment. And if you have a modern sporting rifle in stock, you'll probably sell it, which happened, years ago. But, I talk to owners and they don't want to go through these highs and lows. They want more consistency in how they differentiate over the long term. So with a good differentiation, it should be easier for you to sell. You might be able to have higher prices, receive better revenues, more repeat customers, and kind of what I'm showing here picture-wise is you got a lot on the shelf on the left side, and because you do a good job, you don't have them. They're selling out. So let's jump right in. I'm going to jump right in now to some questioning. I'm going to start with Tim. Tim, tell us about Leupold and Stevens. How does the company differentiate its products and services, but also how important is that, you think, to the overall success and performance of Leupold and Stevens?
Well, thanks, Chris. Differentiation is extremely important. It's difficult to quantify in some cases, but one of the things that we hear in a trade show booth or out in a camp is somebody will come up with, man, I've got 40 of your rifle scopes, and just keep doing what you're doing. It's great. We do a couple of things here. One is we need to know exactly who we are as a company and how do we differentiate the kind of the whole umbrella, right? All Leupold products. And then the second thing is when you get to a specific product, how do you differentiate that? And so from a company standpoint, we spend a lot of time on the strategic architecture, who we are, who does our consumer and our customer expect us to be, and how do we keep doing that? So we have some market research, and in a two-word sentence, it's relentless performance for us. We want the product to work under any circumstance, no matter, right? So we need to make sure that quality and that durability comes first. So that's our kind of the umbrella. This thing has to work. We don't know how it's going to be used or where it's going to be used, and it may be on a mountaintop, it may be overseas somewhere that we don't know about, but it's just got to perform, right? The second piece then is how do you differentiate the product itself? And without getting too deep into that, I would say it's extremely easy to start touting a feature set. We've got this type of an adjustment, and it's got this type of a lens coating, and the main tube is made out of this material. If you look at the research, that's not what today's consumer's looking for. They're looking for, what does it do for me? They don't want the benefit, they want the feature. And so we focus really hard as we're going through a new product process that we're circling back to that 4 or 5 times per project. Every phase gate that we go through, we circle back to our insights process and look at what is the benefit to the customer, what is different. and that has to be focused on pain points. It can't be focused on what we like or what we think will sell. It needs to be, what are people really saying? What are they really asking for? And how do we go meet that need? So I think in a short answer, it's being very consumer focused.
And just clarify, because I think you mixed up some words there, because you've told me before it's focused on the benefit, not the feature. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, on the benefit rather than the feature. I apologize.
Right, benefit rather than feature. And we're going to get into some examples of this a little later, specifically with both companies. But Lori, how about Lipsey's? How you differentiate Lipsey's, and how important you think it is in the success of the company?
Thank you, Chris. Well, you have to remember there are roughly 25 to 30 distributors out there, just like Lipsey, structured exactly as we are in two-step distribution. And I guess right now I'm speaking on behalf of all of the distributors. We all know what our very important role in the food chain in the firearms business really is, and that value in two-step is very important. So remember, we are all essentially doing the same things with carrying inventory and talking to our customers on the phone and taking on the incredible credit risk that we all do. We all, carry inventory, heavy inventory from our manufacturers. We're all hiring and training our sales associates. And we, too, when we speak about features and benefits, like Tim is talking about products, we're talking about services. And so as a distributor, you have to figure out what services that you're providing that perhaps some of the other distributors are not, or perhaps what you can do better in this incredibly competitive market. And we'll go through in a few minutes, and I'll go through some of those a little bit more detail. But I really have to commend Kenyon and the job that he does with our board, as well as all of the NASGW members made up of the distributors, because when we do things with NASGW, it's done as a group, and we know about the powerful role that we play in two-step distribution and the incredible value that we provide to not only our manufacturers, but to our retailers. And it's in our best interest to all work together to ensure that we, maintain a powerful and important and useful role in the marketplace.
And I see, Lori, you made some good comments, with the distributor or wholesaler, you don't have anything unique necessarily from a product perspective, because you're basically reselling, manufacturer's products. So you have to compete on service, right?
Right. And several of us, that's probably, 90% of what we carry are the same products that all of the other distributors are carrying for the most part. Lipsey's over the past several years, meaning, 25 plus years, has really focused on exclusives. And like I said, I'll go through that a little bit more detail in a minute, but that's one of the things that absolutely makes Lipsey stand out with the, not just with the retailer, but with the consumer. While we do not sell consumer direct, we've really engaged ourselves in our lipseysguns.com, which is direct to the consumer in terms of education and product information, but without selling them directly.
And the other thing I just want to emphasize that you mentioned, Lori, was that even though you may compete in similar fashions, you mentioned the word service, it's doing it better than the competition. And I'm going to bring that up because we talk a lot about relative growth or relative performance. If someone's doing a 6 or 7 out of a 10 scale in a certain area, and the other company's doing an 8 or 9, they're outperforming that company. So to those listening today, you can still compete in the same type of area, whether it be service or breadth, and we'll get into some of these areas, but you do it better. So that's, again, a relative component to this. Let me talk about ways, a partial list of ways companies can differentiate themselves. And what you'll see here is The bigger list is for manufacturers because they have product and service that they can differentiate themselves on. Everything from that function, the features, the durability, over to the right side where you see the wholesalers and distributors have less that they can differentiate themselves because it's more service-oriented. But let's talk about product variety. You've got a greater variety, and I think, Laura, you mentioned, the exclusives. There's product depth. I might have more of the single-action cowboy pistols than anybody else. There's your exclusives. I think we listed that also. So here's a lot of different ways that companies can differentiate themselves. We'll talk later about really the importance of the customer's interest in this and what's important to them. You might decide that made in the USA, which we hear a lot, is something that differentiates us, but when everybody's saying it, then how different is it? I wanted to give you some examples of some companies that some we've worked with, many we've worked with, and how they differentiate themselves. So, a lot of holster manufacturers out there. One focuses on this handcrafted, therefore it's a better fit, and therefore your handgun may retain better and not come out. Defensive ammo manufacturers, they got a bigger depth of selection, so there's your depth issue. Modern sporting rifle magazine manufacturers talking actually just yesterday, and they said purely low cost. There's a lot of AR mags out there. They compete purely on low cost. And you can see 1911, there's a lot of the same companies out there doing the same product, but they've picked a different way to differentiate themselves. So what I want to do here is actually take a quick poll in our audience here and actually ask you a question that I'll ask you to reply to is how well do you think you differentiate your products or services from the competition? And what I'll ask you to do, everyone listening here, is just click on everything from I do it extremely well to maybe a little better than the average, or about the same as my competitors. So let's going to talk about the relative comparison. Not as good as my competitors, or we actually don't differentiate what we offer at all. So let's take about 30 seconds. I see a bunch of people answering, almost half so far, and just to get a sense of how well people think they're differentiating their products and services, and then we'll show that results and get some comment on this. So I've got, almost 80%. This is great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. In fact, what I got to remember to do is record it. But let's take a look and see what people think. So I'm going to close it and share it. Okay, George, you seeing that?
I am. I'm glad to see extremely well is 13%. I expected to see a little less than that, actually. So good job, listeners. It's real good.
And we don't have anybody down at we don't differentiate what we offer at all. Okay. Looks like there's a bunch at better than average. It was probably the highest, better than average, which is actually, I like hearing this. I found this out. People that are attending webinars or educational sessions are actually performing usually better than average, and that's why they're actually here learning and listening. So that's a great thing. Anything, George, you want to comment on that, Lori or Tim?
No, I'm good. I find it amazing that we've got 13% in the top category and 13% in the lower category. So
yeah, interesting.
So that puts the majority of the people right where they ought to be. Good.
And the 13% that did extremely well are still listening to how to do better. So that's awesome. Back to this relative performance. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about features versus benefits, something that Tim mentioned. I think, George, you're going to talk about this.
Yeah, features and benefits, pretty simple stuff. The feature is what makes it different, whether it be a lens coating or the power magnification or the caliber or the barrel length or whatever it may be regarding the particular product. And the benefit is why it's to the buyer's advantage to buy it or why it's to the buyer's advantage to do business with. And one of the things I really liked when I heard Laurie talking was education for the people that they sell to and then their customers on their website. I'm a big one into product knowledge, and I work with all kinds of customer service people in all over the industry. And one of the things that I like to do is to ensure that whoever interfaces with the customer has at least 3 things that they can say about a particular product that they're selling. You know, can have interchangeable sights, longer barrel, adjustable trigger pull, you know, whatever it may be. But by educating the person that they're talking to, whether it's a dealer or a consumer, it's the same thing. It gives them information to allow them to make a good decision. And when they have that information, it's a high likelihood that they're going to buy right there because they've just been given something for free that they didn't have before. So again, you know, the feature is what makes it different, much like what Tim said. And the benefit is why do I want to buy this as a buyer or a consumer? Down at the bottom, in case most of you haven't figured that out, that's what's in it for me. So that's the bottom line. What's in it for the customer or the person that's going to buy from you, whether it be products, services, or anything else. If we keep that in mind, you'll have a better likelihood of parting the money from the folks and reducing the material that you've got in your warehouse.
And for those listening, you know, we have mostly a lot of sales and marketing execs on. You know, look at your website, look at your marketing material. Is it more of what's on the left side, the features, or is it more on the right side? What's being communicated there? The benefits or the features?
It should be more benefits than features.
It should be a lot more benefits than features, right?
Absolutely.
But we don't see it, though, do we? We see more features, and that's, again, you know, kind of what provoked this topic. I'm going to go backwards, or maybe not backwards, but I'm going to start with Lori. And Lori, let's talk about some detailed examples of how Lipsey's differentiates itself. And what I'll do, I think you've got some slides you sent me. I'll bring those up.
Thank you.
Everyone
okay,
seeing those
thank
now?
you, Chris. I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share this. So just keeping in mind, you know, again, while we are mindful of what our competition is doing, it's more important for us to focus on the things that we know we can control and do for our customers. And, you know, as you see here, the top thing that we always go back to are our industry relationships. And again, in selling the same products as everyone else, we've got to be able to distinguish our services. And in order to do that, we have to maintain the highest of relationships in a truthful, honest way, not only with our vendors and suppliers, but our customers and any other partners in the industry who will help us to help our customers. I've mentioned Lipsey's exclusives, and I've got a few slides in a minute that we can talk about that. But I always turn back into our team, and not just our huddle team, our management team, but our entire team of 100 plus at Lipsey. And we focus on our team members even more than our services, products, exclusives, anything else. Because if our team is educated and they are happy and they are ingrained in the culture that we have provided for them, and if they are a fit in our culture, they're going to be successful. And if our team is successful, then our customers will be able to reap those benefits. So I really like to have our team members, everyone is not only just well-trained, but we've got all different perspectives, personality, and experience. And if everyone had the same views and the same wants and needs, then we would not need each other. And the best part about our team at Lipsey is that we all come from a different, varying background. Some of us are more technically challenged than others, and some we all bring something different to the table. I think you pulled up March Madness. That was something that we started 15 years ago, and we ingrained our customers as well as our vendors. and we have different kinds of specials and promotions. But what's important is that we don't only involve our sales team, but we involve our administrative staff, our warehouse and distribution staff, as well as our customers. And of course, we threw in a basketball tournament in there, which is always high top priority, something that we do every March Madness. But a couple of years ago, we really started with a charity component to it, all for local charities, and we have raised thousands and thousands of dollars for local charities, and it's something that we're very, very proud of. But our customers, as well as you can see there, our vendors get involved in it as well. And it's something that while a lot of other distributors have shows at the beginning of the year, we've never done a distributor show, but we have March Madness, which we think is unique and fun, and it involves a lot of different people in the industry. And we're very proud of the money that we have raised over the years in doing that.
And I jumped a little on you, Lori, on the slides. You want to talk about, here's the industry relationships. You're talking about the
Sure.
industry relationships, right? You want to?
Thank you. I do. So what's really important is that we want to make sure that our whole team has access to, industry people, whether it's our salespeople visiting their customers. They're not just on the phone all day, but they're able to go out and visit their customers. Our buying team and our compliance team and many others also are very engaged in the other industry boards and such. We encourage people to be engaged in anything in the industry that they can be, because it not only helps us, but it helps the other distributors as a whole. And like I said, we're really all in this together. We're a very small group of distributors, and it's in everyone's best interest to support each other. So we go to several different shoots and other things, and we visit our manufacturers. You can see a picture there with Mike Pfeiffer from Ruger, and of course Wayne LaPierre with NRA. We're very involved with NRA. If you want to flip another slide, Chris, I think you had, oh, right, okay. So we have our manufacturers down to Lipsey's all the time, not only for training, but it's just for discussion. We like to engage our whole team in discussion with our manufacturers, because we don't like to become complacent in anything that we do. And we always want to make sure that we are getting better and that we don't ever sit and rest on our laurels. And we want to make sure that if we are not changing, then we're staying still and we're going to get left behind. And if you go one more slide, you can see we've really engaged ourselves in exclusives. We have an incredible product development team led by our Vice President and Product Development Manager, Jason Klausner. And this guy knows more about firearms, even on the technical side, than any of us could ever pretend to have. And he goes to our manufacturers, and they really talk about not only what is available on the production line, but what makes sense for the consumer. And he's very in tune to the blogs and the chats online to see what people are asking for. And he doesn't look for fads, if you will, but more for trends, if that makes sense. And so the exclusives over the years, and we've got, you can see we've got our Glocks there, and we've got many with Ruger. You can see on the next slide with our new shopkeepers, as well as flat tops and several others. But we partner with our manufacturers to really find what is not being done in their line that makes sense for the consumer. And like I said, our team has that expertise and knows what is wanted by the consumer. While we do not sell directly to the consumer, we are highly engaged with them through our Lipsey'sGuns.com. And our exclusives and our partners, our manufacturer partners, who have been willing to listen and to heavily participate in the production of exclusives, we've both been able to see the benefits that it brings to all of our companies by doing that.
That's great, Lori. And I'm going to go back just up to the front page here, the cover page. So, you're focusing on differentiation from a relationship perspective, and you link also the third one being the team. So you've got great people that have great experiences. You talk about the product development person that has great firearm knowledge, and working that with the manufacturers and your dealers is what one of the key things I was going to say that differentiates Lipsey's from the others. Is that a safe paraphrase?
It is, and again, when we really we hire for personality and we train for skills, and the people who we bring into Lipsey's, into the Lipsey's culture, all have something unique to offer. So even a step before we take care of our customers, we take care of our own team first, because they are all experts in something that they do, and it doesn't do us any good to keep that just to ourselves. So we want to make sure they're out in the industry and they're talking about trends in the industry or products. We've got people who deal with NRA, both locally and nationally. And again, we've got even everything from, our website. Our website, we have a CIO who's been with us for many years, and our website has brought more, not just business to us, but we have had more compliments and kudos over the years from our retail partners, because our website truly is better than the others, and it's very easy to navigate. And the consumer has access to both Lipsey's.com as well as Lipsey'sGuns.com, although obviously they don't have sign-in privileges to see, wholesaler information. But the website is such a great educational and informational tool that has really brought a tremendous value to our customers.
That's great, Lori. Very good. Thank you. And I'll just remind people listening, if you have questions for Tim, for Lori, or in general, feel free to go to that window on the right, go into the questions area and type that in, and we'll try to get it as we can. Tim, you want to talk about Leupold? You talked earlier, the word you used was relentless performance and strategic architecture. You want to peel that back a little for us, those listening, and explain more in detail how Leupold differentiates itself? And I think, I know I talked to you earlier, you actually have a good example and a bad example, or not so good example, I guess, right?
I do, yeah. One of the things, I think we've got some slides coming up, we talk about how to differentiate and the role of research that goes into that. We spend a lot of time doing consumer research. It's consumer panel data, it could be sales trends and other things, but the number one thing that people look for, I guess a trait that people associate with Leupold, is trust. And so they trust that when it comes out with, when a product comes out with the Leupold name or brand on it, that it's going to work. They've had that success in the past, and they trust us going forward. Well, in order to keep that, we need to keep it consumer focused, as we discussed, but we also need to adapt. So as you're going forward, it used to be very technologically based, and people wanted the features. That was the way the market was at one point. The longer the list of features, the more differentiated you were, and the better it was. Well, today's consumers, it's more of an instant gratification type of a society. You walk through with the social media, you look at Twitter and other things, Instagram, there's no words at all. The picture has to say what it is, right? So as we transition and try to stay current, you need ads like what we've got up here on the screen. We worked with consumers, found a pain point that was out there, which is when you're archery hunting, you need to use both hands to draw your bow. So how can you make that accurate, ethical shot if both hands are occupied and the distance changes? So you've got an elk coming in or a deer, and the distance changes. So we worked on the product side to realize, well, we need a bow-mounted rangefinder. We went through and got that done. But the other piece, the execution piece, is how do we tell that story? So rather than a laundry list of features, we want to know what's most important to that consumer. And so we ask for pain points. When you're archery hunting, what's the toughest part? And they say, well, I can't range when I'm at full draw. So we come up with a short tagline that says, draw, range, release. That gets people's eyes, right? If they see the bow, they say, wait a minute, that means I can range while I'm at full draw. And then we follow it up on the bottom there a little bit with minimize movement, maximize success, and then the name. It's the bow-mounted Vendetta 2 rangefinder. So if you want more details, we will provide that and a little bit of copy down on the bottom. But this is the output of looking at what is the benefit to me. The benefit for me is I'll maximize success. I won't have to move as much. I think you've got an example there of our flashlights, which are an older product, and this will kind of show the difference. This is where we've started with flashlights. You can look, and it's custom construction, maximum output and battery life, absolute waterproof integrity, a sapphire window. You go through this, not once has it said why. Even the bolder part, it took a company obsessed with light transmission to come up with an idea this good. What's the idea? Sometimes it helps to go back and look at things that didn't work quite so well for us and learn from those. And so I think there's a second page even on this where it's really easy to overwhelm your customer or your consumer, right? So when you compare this to draw, range, release, we find that is much more successful, and it appeals much faster and to the younger demographic that we're trying to capture, right? Put the main lines up there first, give them a chance to be hooked, and then if they want more information, let them dive in. And so from a product side, we need to keep that trust. That's something that we can do internally. But the execution piece, once you've got the good product or the good service or whatever it is, how do you relay that in a meaningful way that also stands out? I guess that would be the main point that I would bring from this.
And I look at this, Tim, and great, because I appreciate, we appreciate that you've got both a good, quote unquote, a better example and a less successful example. As a consumer, I'd see this, I'd know it's Leupold, and I wouldn't read it. There's just so much there, right?
It is.
Contrasting that with very simple, draw, range, release. By the, I like just visually that the Red 44 kind of draws your eye into it, and you're kind of, what's that? So this is great, a good example of what's worked well and what's maybe less successful. You both emphasize the need, though, to talk to your customer, right, and get input from the customer. I think, Tim, you started with it, as a hunting guide. The customer is ultimately the one that defines what's important. And I know when we've gone through and work with clients, and we'll talk to the client about what they think is different about their product and what the consumer wants, then we go talk to the consumer themselves, surveys and so forth. We don't always get the same answer. On the right side, we've just kind of done a little high-level segmentation. What type of customer are we talking about? Not only what the use is, demographics, and what we get into a lot more is the psychographics, the really definition of what's their buying psychology and buying profile, which really helps in greater detail understand what your customer is and why they're buying. We've how do you do that? How do you get a hold of the customer? Real simple. You've got your existing customers, which may be somewhat biased because they've been buying your product. But there's obviously prospective customers in different segments that you may target. What are you going to ask them? Again, not a a feature question, but maybe a benefit question. What's influencing you? What's important? How important is it? And we always like asking, who's the best company, and then why? And then we all have obviously our own websites. We've got our own customer lists, if you will. Some of them aren't maintained as good as others, but you've also got, SurveyMonkey as a tool, 15 different websites, Facebook, Twitter, that you can go out there and do that. And many of you are doing that already, but how much of that information is actually being tabulated or captured? What we've done, and I've explained earlier that as an engineer, very analytical in what we do. We're working on a client right now. It's a espresso manufacturer, and we've worked with them to define what the characteristics are here, the big list, and then ask them to prioritize. What is a civilian? This is not for military law enforcement. What the civilian buyer? What's their priority? And they've shown that here in this. We did the 1, 2, and 3 rating, and then they broke the ones down to an ABC priority. And then we're going to find out what the company has for scores in that area and what the competition does. Now, that's something that we're doing, but there's also public data out there. This is one of the ones that was kind of interesting. This goes back from the National Shooting Sports Foundation 2010 Modern Sporting Rifles report, where it asks, how important are each of these reasons in buying your modern sporting rifle? And here you see accuracy, reliability, and reputation of the manufacturer as the top three. But how many AR companies, AR manufacturers, are actually promoting that? And there's not a lot. And here's public data that can help you do that. So let's talk a little about the consumer and the customer, and how you get that information and or how often. And I'm going to go back to Tim and ask you, how often does Leupold either formally survey their customers on a broad scale, formally do polls or focus groups on particular products? Give us a little insight there, and how important that is in creating a differentiation on the product side.
Sure. Yeah, we're fortunate. I think many listening are as well. Even if you don't do direct-to-consumer sales, and we don't either, we use two-step distribution, but we've got an educational program that's out there. But more importantly, we are fortunate to have hundreds, if not thousands, of phone calls and emails that come in directly from the consumer every week. And so that may be people that want to modify a scope in our custom shop, have a product question about what they should buy. But we have this call center, and that is an absolute wealth of knowledge. There's people that are on phones all day, every day. I was fortunate enough to do that early in my career. And you're talking with 2,000 consumers of your product every week. How do you capture that? So we set up a system that helps us kind of monitor what are the most recent topics, what are the hottest things that people are talking about. We look at market research, but we send out surveys. We have cards in every one of our products. Now you're capturing existing customers when you do that, consumers, but we gather all of that data formally, and then in the product process as we go through. And I've got a graphic, I think, that kind of shows what we do for our insights process. There's no magic bullet. There's no recipe that says make this product and you will succeed. But what you're trying to do is develop a very solid point of view on what you should develop, what product, or in some cases what service. And so you see in the kind of the 1 o'clock position there, consumer services group. This is an internal thing that we do here. That group is the technical service department, product services, things that have come in for warranty or for upgrade. That's where we start with everything. We've got thousands of responses weekly that comes in. We look at those, we compile those, we look for trends, as Lori was talking about. We do customer surveys. You can see that on the right. Then we take some of that stuff and we look at it from the other side. So we'll go to a pro team and a field staff and say, are you hearing things like this? We'll ask them what they're looking for. We take all of that and blend it with what we're seeing in the market research. So you were talking about looking at reliability, durability, those things on the ARs. We know what the top 3 things that people are looking for from us. We look at that market research. We use a couple of sources. And then we pull those in with the last 2 that you see that are that field savvy and an internal DNA. That's that gut feeling. So we are out and using these products all the time to anticipate what's coming on. And as we go around that wheel, it comes around through the field savvy and up to our internal DNA, our gut instinct, and then we get our final product point of view. We will go through this process at least 4 times per new product in that project. And that's to make sure at every phase gate that we're still hitting those marks as we go, especially before we do hard tooling or anything that really commits you to the project. So 4 to 5 times per product as we develop, we'll go through this entire wheel.
And let me state this, just watching a little on time. I'm sure some people are probably thinking, just that's nice, there's Leupold, 100 whatever plus people. We don't have that in our business. And I'm going to state, but you can confirm with me, Tim, when you did your guiding earlier, your own business, mm-hmm. People can still do this with limited resources, just less, I don't say less formal, but with less resources behind it. I'm not going to say it's a ready, fire, aim approach, but they can still get good customer input. It's just got to put a process in place to do it. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. That is fair. We did it at, when I was with Sharps Rifle Company, that was a company, we've got 700 employees here. We had 20 there. You can implement this on a scalable level. With social media, it becomes really easy. You can do fun contests and other things. What product would you like to see? What benefit are you missing? You can do these little fun things that get you a ton of feedback in a free way in a lot of cases. So.
Okay. Lori, how about Lipsey's? How often are you formally or more formally capturing customer input?
Well, it's really done on a daily basis, and it really takes on many different forms. Number one, we receive and we encourage when I say customer feedback, I'm talking about our retailers, not the consumers.
Right.
But we encourage feedback from them all the time, and we have a process where we go through and we share and we highlight feedback that we get back from our customers because it makes us better. But it's all about sharing information and communicating within the team. So a few things that we have in place in order to do that, each department has its own meetings on whether it's a daily or weekly basis. Our management team has, if you want to call it formal, but they're really informal, roundtable meetings. And this is all about sharing information because it doesn't do our team any good to get valuable information and not to share it with everyone else in the company. And so it's very important that the communication lines are open so that we can meet the needs of our customers. But we get a lot of insight from our retailers through our website and, of course, through email. But, we rely heavily, obviously, on our sales force. And our sales team, they're on the phone, they're talking to 50, 60 retailers in a day, each one of them. And so they're getting constant feedback on the phone about what's going on. And then keep in mind, we have an active credit department. Our credit department is speaking to customers on a daily basis. Social media at Lipsey's Guns is also become a very, very important part of our online strategy. So we're getting feedback constantly. It's not really done in the form of formal customer surveys, if you will. It's probably been a number of years since we've actually done that. But we are engaging ourselves with our customer in these other ways that I just mentioned. And again, it just all comes down to sharing information and communication within your team so that you can react quickly to a demand in the marketplace.
And maybe it's good to clarify, customer input. I use the word survey, but customer input. And both of you mentioned that you get it on a daily basis. And usually when I'm working with a company and I hear that, I roll my eyes because everybody does capture it on a daily basis, but they don't do anything with it. It goes, quote unquote, in one person's ear and out the other. But I heard that both of you have some more formal processes to capture that information, whether it be on the credit side, the customer service side, returns, whatever it is. And that, to me, is what is unique. We all get feedback every day, with phone calls. But what do you do with it? And it sounds like, Tim, you've got formal processes to capture it. Lori, you have that, but you also, Lori, emphasized sharing that information. Okay, now we've got it. What are we going to do with it? So I think that's awesome. Let me do this.
That's very important.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Nope, go ahead. You want to add to that?
I was just going to mention, too, that, it's important, at least for us, that you handle all of, the positive and the negative feedback, regardless of what it is, because any negative feedback can be equally or more instrumental in you making a change as positive feedback. So it's important that we address everything and do it in a timely manner.
That's awesome. Let me do one more poll, and we got basically 4 or 5 minutes left here. I want to know from the audience what their greatest challenge is going to be in maybe developing a more differentiated value proposition for your company. So, is it a mix of having the process that you need? Is it the leadership team, getting that team to just agree upon, focus on it, the customer input and feedback, not necessarily, again, formal surveys, but collecting that? trying to identify what makes us unique. I mean, we made the process, you're all on the same page, but we just having a hard time trying to figure it out. And then there's the catch-all, all of the above. That's the bottom one. So let's do that, and then we're going to wrap up. And we've got a few questions, and if we have a minute or two at the end, we'll get to it. But it's getting tight. Okay, most people have voted. I'm going to close this up real quick, in about 10 seconds. And I'm going to ask George again to take a look at this and get some reaction. So let me try this right now. George, I'm going to share this with you and everybody else. Having the process seems to be the biggest one here, followed by all the above. Quick reaction, George?
Nobody admits to leadership difficulties, and there are many middle-of-the-roaders here. So, that's okay. That's good. At least we're trying to make something happen.
That is true. That is true. Let me I will say oversimplify. So one of the answers here is having the process. We mostly have a lot of executives on the team here, so they're not putting it themselves, but that's a different story. Maybe that's capturing the all the above. Let me show you. I'm going to wrap this up just time-wise here. I've got like a minute too. Is the process, and this is a very, very oversimplified approach, but you first need to start with your customer. Who is your customer? Back to that chart on the segmentation or psychographics. Who's your customer? What are they buying? Why are they coming to you? And then define what their priorities are, define their buying criteria, and prioritize it. That's actually a great discussion internally. And then go outside and see what they really say. Okay, again, I haven't broken down into doing what internally versus externally. But once you do that, then compare yourself. Okay, if it's reliability, if it's performance, how do you define that, and how do you compare, and where do you get that information? And then look at where are you outperforming. Where is it that you are doing a better job, or have a better opportunity to do a better job? So you may not have that uniqueness necessarily right now, but it's something we can work on. And then, the communication piece of this. Okay, now let's start communicating it and show, quote unquote, the world what you can do. So again, that's a very oversimplified version. The thing we want to summarize here, and they're going to be tight on time, is, again, from what we've seen, many companies don't do a good job differentiating their products or their services. It's definitely more difficult on a service side, the warehousing side, to differentiate than a product, but we still don't see as much as we think we should and can. And I say that in a positive way, meaning when we work with these clients, there's a lot there. They're not doing a good job communicating it. But by doing that, you've got revenue generation, profitability, is selling many, many different ways that will help your business be more successful and outperform the competition. You need customer input, to make this happen. You can't do it internally. And there is a process. I showed you kind of a high-level process, but there's a process that we've been using for years now to fairly quickly actually get it to core and then work it. But I will go back to that chart we showed earlier, that bikers, that's saying he who executes the best is really who wins. So, we know everyone here listening has many different priorities that they're working on. This one, I think Tim used the word, I'm going to find it, strategic architecture, I believe is what it was. This actually helps define many things in the business. How you sell, the words you sell, the products you design, who you're designing the products for. You talked about a stage gate process, again, which is helpful to this. So this, to me, is one of those big strategic things you need to do to be successful. Now, I'm looking at 2 o'clock Eastern, so we are out of time, and I do want to wrap this up. We will, this is being recorded. It will be available probably early next week. And for those that are listening today, we'll send you both the link to the recording and the copy of the presentation. For those that asked some other questions that we didn't get to, we'll try to get to those maybe offline or send you an email with some answers. I'd like to thank Lori, Tim, George, you're with me all the time, but Lori and Tim, thank you very, very much for joining us today. I think you've created some great insights for those listening. And Lori, I hope you continue to enjoy your vacation. And Tim, you got to go back to work. Tim, you got to go back to work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
If anybody has more questions or anything regarding this, here's our contact information. You can find us on growthstrategypartners.com. We hope everyone has a great day, and we're going to end it right here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.